Okay, so as mentioned in the first video, we are moving on to the second video based off rock painting. The first video obviously being using multiple rocks, a lot of rocks to create an image. With this, we are focusing on one rock and doing something for a background. So with the Halloween season upon us, I decided to do something obviously kind of a Halloween theme. And we'll talk about how I did the pieces. Once again, I'm not going to demonstrate how to do this entire thing. I'm going to show you a little bit at a time, just some little tricks and things, and talk about some other possibilities that you could do with this. This is going to be a multimedia project, and so I want to talk about the possibilities of the different things that you can use that I actually used on my example. The first thing I want to do is obviously come up with an idea. Once I have that idea, then I can start to execute. So as I started thinking about, okay, I want to do a Halloween theme, obviously I thought a rock this shape would be perfect for a jack-o'-lantern. So what I did was, and we'll move this out of the way for a moment, is I got a rock, and as you can see right here, I actually painted the entire thing white first. I kind of found out that painting with a color, it took multiple layers of paint to cover it, depending on the type of paint you were using. This white covers it pretty well, so I did that first, and then I would do a color on top of that. That's exactly what I did with this one right here. I painted it white first, and then I went over it with the orange. So what I had to do, actually, believe it or not, as an art teacher, I did not have orange paint. So I had to make it with some yellow and some red. Now, if you have to make a color, depending on the color you want to make, you got to think about what colors are going to mix well. It's always a good idea to try it on a separate area, such as I have this plastic plate that I'm mixing paints on. You don't want to try it for the first time on your rock. So what I want to do is I want to make orange. I'm going to need more yellow than red. So I'm going to pour out some yellow there. I'm going to pour out just a little bit of red, not too much. I'm going to start mixing them up. I'll use this brush that I have right here that I was using before. And then you start to get orange. Now what I want to do with this is lighten it up even a little bit. That's why I have the white over here. Is I'll take a little bit of that white, start mixing it in. And then if I want to make it darker, add a little more red, add a little more orange. I kind of like both colors, to be honest with you. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stick with this, get some of the excess paint. I don't mind some of that paint that isn't mixed on there, because when I brush it on, it'll mix anyway. So what I'm going to do now that I have that paint mixed, is I'm going to paint over top. Keep this because I'll need that red in a minute. I'm going to paint right over top of this. And that's actually going on really well. I must have used a different paint before, because when I painted the original one, I had to do a couple layers of orange. I might have to do one here. It's going on pretty well, but my guess is I might have to do another coat, let this dry, and do it again. But maybe not. We'll have to wait and see. I'm not going to wait for it to dry to show you the next step. So what I would do, if I want to start getting some detail, so you can see here with this pumpkin, you see some of this darker orange. That's when I just took some of this red right here and decided to just start doing strokes, lines of red like that. Right along, following the shape of the pumpkin. You notice I didn't just go straight up and down. I was following the shape of the pumpkin. And then what I wound up doing before is I took on the first pumpkin, kind of like layered a little bit. Like that. And then when that was dry, that's when I went over it with the black, with some black paint. Don't want to get my fingers too painty because I'm going to be doing some other things. But that's when I went over, after that was dry, I did this, the eyes and the mouth with black paint, and I did the little details there with a Sharpie marker. The stem is just rolled up brown construction paper, hot glue gun to the rock. Now, moving on to the background. So I put that off to the side. I have my plan. I'm ready to go. So right here, as you can see, let me move this out of the way. I did a haunted house, haunted mansion, whatever you want to call it, in the background with some bats. Again, this is a multimedia project. So I did this on purple construction paper. I made some of these elements, obviously the moon, the house, the grass, the bats are construction paper. These bats here are actually drawn right on the paper with a Sharpie marker. I went outside, grabbed a stick, just broke it up, hot glued it on there to make it look like it was a tree. I used cardboard behind this bat to make it look like it's kind of popping out. I used some chalk pastel for the background and some oil pastel for some of the details on the grass, for the windows and door on the house, and for the lines on the house as well. So just to show you a couple things that you can do. Again, these are all options. Nothing I'm doing here is something that you have to do. But I'm going to use chalk pastel for my background. And all I did was just start coloring it in. Now bring this all the way down towards the bottom. Again, I'm not going to do the entire thing. When I typically do this, I have a piece of newspaper under my project because you get a lot of the dust from the chalk pastel. And then I'll use my finger to kind of just blend that in. And that will fill in all those gaps from the paper that are still showing. I actually want to get a little bit of a darker purple for that bottom, or excuse me, for that top part right there. So I'll take a little bit of a darker purple now. And then again, using my finger, just blending that in. Again, I want to avoid having, not again, but for the first time I'm saying it, is I want to avoid having lines. So I want to make sure this is a gradual transition from dark to light. So I'm kind of using a circular motion to blend it, and then I'm following the shape or the direction I want it to go with the paper. Now, as far as the haunted house goes, I would draw that on a piece of paper first. Once I have that drawn, I'm not going to do anything with the pastel. And again, this whole background will be done at this point with the chalk pastel. But I'm not going to do anything with the oil pastel on this yet. I would want to make sure that I have this entire thing glued on first. I tend to, for gluing stuff like this, I like to use the glue stick. You can use Elmer's glue. The problem with Elmer's glue is a lot of you like to overuse it. So you'll squeeze it right along the edges so that when you flip it over and press down, it seeps out all the sides. So you can use Elmer's glue, but you gotta use it sparingly. Elmer's glue is very strong. I think a lot of students don't give Elmer's glue enough credit. It works very well. So if you're using white Elmer's glue, just maybe put some dots on there, spread it around with your fingers so that when you flip it over and glue it and press down on it, it doesn't seep out the sides. So I'll glue this on here. Oops, the one thing I did forget to do, and I won't press this down yet, is I forgot to glue my moon. So what I had to do was, in order to get a circle, I don't have a compass here. So what I did was I got yellow paper, took this, and just outlined that, and then I cut it out. And I have it pre-cut. There's my moon. And then I'll just glue this on. I'm not going to use as much glue as I normally would, just because I want to, you know, hurry up a little bit. And then I'm going to glue this right on here on the back, just like that. And then I'm going to press down on it. Now, when you press down on this, you'd have to be careful with the chalk pastel in the background, because you don't want to spread that onto any of your areas of your moon or your house. You probably could erase it. Let's just see, test it out real quick. I'm not sure if it erases or not. Sometimes it does. So it looks like it erases relatively well, but you want to avoid that anyway as much as possible. Then I have my windows here. I'm not going to do all of them, but I could draw. Usually what I'll do is I'll take in the yellow here. I know what I like, actually what's going to work out pretty well here is once I have that, then I can go over it with the orange. But what I notice is this going over the black paper, it doesn't go on that well. So what I might do is take some white on top of it first, or second even. I mean, I could have done this first, but I'm doing it second. Let's see how that looks. I'm starting to like how that looks actually. Let's see how the yellow looks on top of that. There, it's looking a little better. And then again, I can take the orange and start putting that on, giving it kind of a glowing look. If I wanted to add some bars for a window, I could do that. I also pre-did the grass. So if I wanted to do some grass, I have that drawn on there. I take my scissors, cut it out. Any of the details that I would use with the oil pastels, I would do after everything is glued on, not beforehand, because you don't want to smudge it too much. With the bats, I had a bat cut out right there. I actually glued some cardboard on the back of it so that when I glue it on here, it gives it a little bit more of a 3D effect. Again, I got a stick outside. I broke it up into pieces and I kind of put it at, on the paper before I actually glued it. I wanted to make sure it looked like a tree. Once I knew exactly where I wanted it to be, I let it set it down on the paper and I just glued on each individual piece. Then I took my rock. Again, this one isn't fully dry yet. Had that on there, and there you go. So let me get the finished example again. Here's the finished copy right there. If this is the project that you choose between the two of them, it should be a multimedia project. I'm using various mediums. I'm using chalk pastel. I'm using paint. I'm using regular pastel. I'm using construction paper. I'm using a stick from outside. Think about what you can use to make this a multimedia project. As always, if you have any questions, any concerns, please do not hesitate to contact myself, or if Mr. Seville is your teacher, contact him. Have a great time working on either one of these projects. I'll talk to you later.